Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Dan back with Joe Kaiser on this edition of Illinois Rising. And Joe Spalding was back on the campaign trail this week. J.B. Pritzker, of course. By the way, the Pritzker family featured prominently in Peter Schweitzer's new book, Secret Empires. It's worth a read, really is, about the political ruling class and how even the wealthy, of course the wealthy, participate in the rent-seeking, aggrandizement, personal enrichment of politics. So this fallacy that we get into, and a lot of Republicans do it too, somebody who's rich running for office, well, they won't be corrupt because they don't need the money. That's not how it works. That is not how it works, and the examples are replete. Peter Schweitzer's book is a good start, and it includes Penny Pritzker, most specifically, and what she did while she was Obama's Secretary of Commerce. All kinds of conflicts of interest that were for the purposes of enriching herself and her family. But anyway, back to J.B. He talking about the graduated state income tax again, as well as rescinding the private scholarship tax credit legislation that was passed as part of a deal to bail out Chicago public school pensions last year. When we start on the graduated state income tax increase, there's been a couple of different proposals from Democrat legislators. The Christian Mitchell one, I think, is a pretty good handle on what their actual thinking is. You remember they have to sell this as relief for 99%, and we're just going to hit millionaires and billionaires. So 4.95% across the board right now. Christian Mitchell proposes for individuals 3.5% up to $100,000, 3.75 up to $500,000, 8.75 up to $1 million, and then 9.75 over $1 million. Your reaction, Joe?
Well, it's a really popular idea because it's a tax cut, more or less.
So the rich.
Yeah, it's a tax increase just on the ones that pay the most, and JB can actually say if he adopts this plan, I'm increasing my own taxes so I can give everyone else a tax cut.
Right.
But the first thing that I noticed, and I thought about this when they raised the income tax last year, is 3.75, 3.50. I mean, this was the income tax. It's been a tax cut from where they raised it this past year. They just changed the baseline for where the tax rate's going to be on the middle class.
Right.
So I mean, the whole thing with the 32% income tax increase last year is all of a sudden now people are going to think they're getting a tax cut. It doesn't really change much reality for them.
Yeah, just a few years ago, and for many, many years, the flat rate was 3% across the board. So just understand, from just a handful of years ago, you're locking in a 15% increase, round numbers, in the state income tax for $0 to $100,000, so middle-income families.
So they took the highest tax burden in the nation last year, raised it a little bit by increasing the income tax to make it even more intense. Now they're rolling it back, still not doing anything on property taxes, not doing anything to reform spending, so it's still the highest tax burden in the nation. But this is really, it doesn't do anything to change the state's structural problems. And that's what is so frustrating about the progressive tax debate is Democrats kind of think of it as the cure-all to every single problem that ails the state. And really, if you crunch the numbers, and people have done it, it doesn't do much at all.
Yeah, what is something like this projected to raise? Right, I mean, the income tax increase of the 4.95 increase from last year, that's projected to raise $5 billion. That'll come in much less than that because, of course, these government actuaries always do static analysis, and they don't understand that people respond to incentives. And they also don't understand, apparently, despite all of the evidence to the contrary, that people with the means to move, that people with means in general have options. They don't have to stay here and just be punished. They haven't built a wall around Illinois yet, a la East Germany, to keep people in. And that's what they're going to need to do if they want millionaires and successful professionals who make, a good chunk of change, no question, to stay. Why would you stay and get hammered like this? You're not going to. And by the way, point of order, if people could just pick their heads up and look around a little bit, this is not the first state to do this. And when Maryland did it and tried to hammer millionaires and extract more of their money, it didn't come anywhere close to raising the kind of money they thought it was going to raise because millionaires took off from Maryland. Same thing in Jersey, same thing in California, same thing will continue to happen. It's already happening before whacking them on the state income tax. It's already happening, and it will just increase in pace.
Yeah, Illinois was in 2017. Illinois lost in population for the 4th consecutive year. It's the only state to lose in population 4 years running. Chicago, of the 10 largest metro areas in the United States, it's the only one to lose in population last year. It's obvious that Illinois is doing. Everyone knows, whether they don't know policy or not, that Illinois is on the wrong track. And the idea that we're not taxed enough, that the state's not taxed enough, isn't what's going to be what changes that. People, like you said, can move. They can move just a little bit from Chicago to Northwest Indiana to Wisconsin. It's not a hard thing to do when you have means to move. And intensifying the tax burden, already the highest in the nation, is a backwards way to fix the problems the state has.
Well, and here's the other thing, as you were sort of alluding to. So the purpose of this is to raise money to pay unpaid bills and to close our budget, kind of yawning budget deficits for years. That happens every year for years to come. Unfunded pension liabilities, all of the sucking chest wounds. But you're not going to. This is a couple $1 billion maybe, a couple few $1 billion. We have $9 billion in unpaid bills. Just unpaid bills, before you get to $140 billion in unfunded pension liabilities, before you get to another, round numbers, $100 billion in bonded indebtedness. And as you said, there's no discussion of structural reforms of all of the big ticket systems in state government that impose obligations we've proven we can't finance. So what are you really doing here? You're just basically whacking people that are easy to whack for political purposes to win this, to help achieve electoral success this election cycle. That's all it's about. Right. And that's really all it's about. Right. I mean, this isn't, as you said, this isn't about solving any problems.
Right, and it might work is the thing. It might work
because it's popular. Because class envy is popular.
It's popular, and Bruce Rauner might be running against it, but Bruce Rauner is unpopular. So this J.B. Pritzker might be successful electorally, and then if he, does well politically, he might be able to institute this.
Well, and unfortunately, because of the choices he made, Rauner comes to the table with no credibility, because he was going to get it back to 3% by the income tax by the end of his first term, and said it. The largest structural income tax increase in Illinois history is what happened at the end of his first term. And he hasn't done anything on the spend side either. And he had a 2-year budget impasse with Madigan that he ultimately blinked and abdicated so that 15 surrender Republicans could cut this deal with no reforms on the spend side, on the structure side. So, this is a race to the bottom. And it's going to be an expensive race to the bottom, but a race to the bottom no less.